Welcome to Conversations with Sarah. I'm Sarah Reddan of SRTT, your online space for personal development. And today I'm joined by Lynn from Happy Kanga to share her journey of managing mental health. Welcome, Lynn. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming. It's great that you've kind of stepped up and you're willing to come in and share some of like your personal journey for people to kind of listen to where you've been and what has helped you through your struggles. So thank you so much for coming along and speaking with me. Would you like to just share a little bit about sort of Happy Kanga and you and where you are right now?
So I started Happy Kanga in September 2020, so it's only fairly new. I have struggled with anxiety and depression in the past. So when the lockdown was like really making people struggle with the mental health, I kind of wanted to do something to support that. So I've always been a crafter, so I always made things, and I initially started it just to spread a little bit of joy. As time went on, I decided I kind of wanted to do more than that because I have had so much experience myself with mental health, both in terms of supporting others and myself. I wanted to try and help make other people's journeys easier. So it's over the year, it's kind of developed more into actually creating items that support self-care and well-being. And hopefully making other people's journey a little bit easier.
Yeah, and there's so much need for that at the moment. I think, lockdown really made it difficult for a lot of people, and we've recognised that actually we need more support systems in place. So I think it's really important that that's out there and available for people. Are you happy to share some of your story, sort of where you've been with your mental health?
Yeah, that's fine. So I've always grown up around mental health. The majority of my family have had mental breakdowns at points. So very early on in my life, I had seen this and had seen the impacts on the rest of the family, and it was difficult. So I grew up learning how to support other people with their mental illnesses, and I even went to university to study psychology then afterwards to kind of better understand what was going on with people's brains. So if I could work out what was happening and hopefully be able to help people. But I was always on the side of, I'm the strong one that's supporting other people. I was very adamant that I wasn't ever the one that was suffering, so I was quite open about talking about mental health in terms of other people, but I wasn't as much about me. And then in 2016 we had a really rough year. We had 5 family members die within an 18-month period, and my husband walked out when my daughter was 3. So it was a really, really tough time, and I had a bit of a wobble. I was really struggling. I had what I classed then as a breakdown, although actually having had a more severe breakdown since, I no longer class that as a breakdown. I was still able to function, but really I needed help then. I should have got help then.
Do you feel like that you could function because you had to function? Was it one of those kind of moments?
Yeah, like as far as I was concerned, I was left to look after a 3-year-old. At that time, my ex-partner's hours were not stable, so I didn't know when I was going to get support or anything. I didn't live near any of my family members. I had to go to work because I needed the money. I couldn't afford to not go to work, and I needed to wake up every day and do everything because I had to look after Amber. And she was struggling. She went absolutely crazy during that year, which is completely understandable. But then I kind of forced myself to be okay and just get on with it. But then a couple of years down the line, so in January 2019, I think it was, like life was actually going pretty well. Like I'd got a stable job that was term time only, so it was helping with, so I didn't have to worry about her schools and anything. Amber was happy. I had a boyfriend who was very supportive and loving, and looking after me. Well, I didn't need looking after at that time, but he was always there.
It was that supportive kind of, you felt loved, cared for in that kind of way.
So life was going completely fine, and then but I was still struggling with life. And it was kind of like, you know how you always end up thinking, oh, like if ever you're feeling down, you think, oh, like it'll get better when this and it'll get better when that, and actually everything was fine. So if I was still struggling to cope with life, then it was an issue. And actually I got to a point where I started crying every day in work. And then one morning I woke up at 2 a.m. I couldn't face it. I couldn't face life. I couldn't face the day. I couldn't face doing anything. I was absolutely petrified about going into work. But I was having a wrestle in my head. I was like, I can't go into work. I physically cannot make it out of the door to go to work today. But I also physically can't ring them up on the phone and say, I can't cope with this. I can't cope. Like my mental health is, I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I chickened out and I sent them an email at 2 a.m. Because I could write it down. I couldn't say it out loud, but I could write it down. And it ended up being like, I thought I'd only be off for a couple of days and I'd pull myself together and it'd be fine. I ended up being off for 3 months. I had to go on antidepressants and I was having counselling, and basically I couldn't speak. Like it was the most horrendous few months of my life. I couldn't speak. I could barely leave the house. I managed to leave the house to get Amber to school.
Yeah.
And then I'd hide back in the house all day, doing just like the regular things like being able to wash the dishes and cook tea. All of it felt like so much effort.
Yeah.
And if ever I did make it out of the house, I then became paranoid that anyone would see me and think, oh, she's fine. And actually inside I was like completely breaking down. I started having panic attacks. I tried to go back to work before I was ready, and I ended up in the bathrooms having a panic attack on the floor because I couldn't breathe. It was absolutely horrendous. And it took a long time. Like I went back after three months. Luckily, my work was very, very supportive and they eased me in, and they were well aware that sometimes I would need to step out, and that was fine. But it's even now, like we're 2 years on from, well, 2.5 years on from that now, I wouldn't say that I'm cured. I am an awful lot better. I'm now off my antidepressants and I've found like a balance in my life.
Yeah.
But it's a long-standing struggle, and but life is definitely better than it was in 2019.
Yeah. And it sounds like you went through quite a lot, so that the fact that you're able to kind of sit with me now and talk and share, it feels like that's a progression from where you were not even wanting to leave the house to being able to sit and share your story. So thank you for doing that. So we to explore a little bit about kind of, you talked before that when you looked at mental health, you looked at it from the perspective of other people struggling with mental health and how you could support them. So going through your experience of needing that support, how, if any way, has that changed your view of mental health?
I'd say that looking back, I feel very, very ashamed about how I thought about my family. Like I'd seen my mum have a breakdown, I'd seen my sister being unable to speak, and I hate saying it now, but in my head I was judging them. I was thinking, you can be doing this, you can be doing that, you could be helping yourself so much more. And I was thinking, like, how do you get to that point without asking for help? But actually, it's so easy. It's so easy to get to that point without asking for help, because like everyday life is hard, and suddenly you get used to that being hard, and then it gets harder and you get used to it, and it's all little steps that you don't see. And slipping down the hole is very, very easy, but then trying to get out of it again is hard. Like I didn't realize how much effort just actually getting up out of bed would be, or leaving the house, or being able to be around people in the presence of other human beings and not freak out. I didn't understand how hard that was. Like from an academic side, like you think, right, these are the symptoms, this is the cure, like it makes sense.
It's linear, isn't it? Like if you do this, then this will change. But when you're in that state, the doing is the hardest bit, isn't it? Even being able to consider being able to do something different.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like it feels like you've got a massive weight on your shoulders all the time doing anything. So that's probably one of the biggest things that's changed in my view, is actually I'm a lot more forgiving about other people's actions now. I'm actually like, I completely understand why, like how hard it is. And like I was in a very lucky situation. I had a supportive work and a supportive family and people around me, and I didn't have like the extra money worries and everything that a lot of people have. And even I found it hard. So when you do have all those extra things and you don't have the support, I understand that it is a lot harder. And as well, the other thing that changed was I realized how invisible it is. So when I was going back to work initially, like before I was ready, my boss came up to me, like I was in the lunch hall, and she came up to me and she's like, "Oh, you're doing really, really well. You look like you're really in with it." And I'm like, I felt like I was vibrating, like my entire body was shaking all over, and my head was just like so busy, and it felt like it was exploding. And I was like, how can you not notice that? How can you not see that I'm like falling to pieces? But actually, it is invisible. So much of mental health, it goes on inside your head, and that doesn't show, which also then kind of, it makes me ask more now, like, are you okay? Like even like, I think that's why it's so important to have that open conversation about mental health, even if you don't think that there are any mental health problems, because you never know.
And it resonated with me when you said about sort of being the strong one and all of that. I think when you're seen in your family dynamic or your social circle as the strong one, oftentimes people don't recognize that you're having difficulties, because you seem to keep it all together for everyone and everything, and it is, like you say, it's going on inside, isn't it? And I don't know about you, but I know when I went through sort of some times of difficulties, that was the hardest thing for me to hear, people telling me how strong I was, because I then felt I couldn't say what I was finding difficult.
It feels like you're letting them down if you say, actually, I'm not coping. But I was actually really like, when I realized I was starting to struggle, I didn't want to tell my family because of that. Like I didn't want to put extra burdens on them, and I didn't want them to be ashamed of me that I wasn't coping. But actually, it was incredible. No matter what they had going on in their head, they were so supportive. Even if I rang up my mum, just crying on the phone, I'd gone to work one day, I'd got to the car park, and that was it. And then I was like, I knew that I couldn't go in, but I couldn't say anything. So I literally picked up the phone and rang my mum. Again, I couldn't tell her any of this. I couldn't get any of the words out. And she just said, like, I'm here. You're okay. When you're able, go for a walk. just go for a walk down the street and back, and then ring me when you're able. But like, the support that you have, even if other people are struggling, it's amazing. Like I know that I'm very lucky to have that. And they weren't ashamed in the slightest that I wasn't able to be the strong one and that I had problems. It just made me human. Like we
all have struggles. That is the thing. Like with managing mental health, is we all have struggles. We all have difficulties, and somebody's difficulty may seem bigger than yours, but that doesn't make yours not important to you. And it is that being able to reach out and being able to connect, and being able to express what's going on makes a difference in being able to manage what's happening. I don't know, what advice would you give to people that are kind of in that space that you were in?
I'd say, first off, talk to people. Like, you will be surprised at what support you will get. I know not everyone has like a supportive family, but there will be someone that is supportive. And actually, I think you'll find that, like you said, other people have been through that and they are going through that. I did a live on my group very early on, like talking about my mental health for Mental Health Week. And I got so many messages through afterwards saying, I never knew that, but actually, like, I've been really struggling with exactly the same thing right now. So really thank you for speaking up about it. I mean, the other thing that I'd say is stop trying to be the strong one. Stop trying to do everything and make sure everyone else is okay. It's like in the airplanes. Like, I've never actually been on an airplane, but I've heard this thing where you put on your mask before you put on the other people's mask, because you can't help anyone else if you're in that state. So it is really, really important to take whatever time, even if it's just 5 minutes sitting down with a cuppa or reading a book. Or I get to work 5 minutes early now, so that I can literally sit in the car and do nothing for 5 minutes, so that I'm not still busy from the school run and then jumping straight into work. Like, that 5 minutes piece is sometimes what it takes to not be a bad day.
Yeah, and it's so important to, I mean, I talk about this all the time. It's the core of all the work that I do. It is the foundational message that I give to everyone, that self-care. It's not bubble baths, it's not face masks. It is those moments of checking in with yourself, taking time in the busyness, doing the things that connect into you and your soul, and being able to kind of be like, okay, this is me and this is what I need. And it is those small bits, that 5 minutes in the car between one task and another task. I mean, what difference has that made for you?
Oh, it's made a massive difference. Like, I don't go into work now as a panic. Like, it helps you to like reset your brain. It just helps you to reset, get back to the calm levels. And it's the same when I get home from work. If I have that 5 minutes when I get in, then I'm up to playing with my daughter and having fun with her. Otherwise, I'm just getting stressed, and then it'll end up with arguments like before you know it. It really makes a massive, massive difference. One of the things that I think really helps is, like, my driving instructor used to always tell me, words have power, because constantly in my lessons I was saying, I can't do this, I'm rubbish, I'm never going to learn to drive. And I was saying that about so many other things as well. And he would constantly tell me off for it. He'd say, words have power, so be careful what you're saying about yourself, because you start to believe it. And actually it becomes like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you say you can't do it, and then it makes you actually not be able to do it. Whereas if you're more open about it and stop talking down about yourself, it really, really makes a massive, massive difference. And it makes me feel like a better person. Like, my self-worth has gone up since I've stopped being so horrible about myself, because other people aren't being horrible about me.
And you wouldn't say that to a friend, would you? You wouldn't say those things to someone you loved. So it's curious to me that it's somehow acceptable to say all these horrible things to ourselves. And it really does make a difference, doesn't it, when we challenge that self-talk and start to be, even if just being neutral, just being like, I'm okay, this is okay, I can do this today, kind of thing. It really does shift from, the more negative you speak to yourself, the more negative you will feel, because it is that constant bombardment of, I'm not good enough.
And you don't even realize that you're doing it half the time. Like, since he kept on picking me up, like, I didn't notice I was doing it, but because he picked me up on it, actually now I'm noticing more and more, like, whenever I do it. And I do notice myself still doing it, but then I tell myself off for doing that, which doesn't work. But
are you kind to yourself about it? Because it's okay. We get these habits, they become ingrained, and it is that recognizing that, okay, I'm doing it. So, like, because you don't want to give yourself a hard time about giving yourself a hard time. So it's that reframing, isn't it? And sort of like, oh, okay. I mean, it's one of the things that I've done over the years, and really kind of use with my clients as well. It's like practicing like that reframing of the self-talk, and just kind of being kind and noticing when you're doing it, and even in jest, even joking about yourself and being like, oh, I'm really stupid, oh, I'm really clumsy, or whatever. It's like all of these things that we can frame ourselves as, can if it's breaking off bits of who you are and kind of filling it up with negative stuff, it's like, nah, you need no.
Yeah.
Notice and like reflect on why you're doing that, and maybe and shift it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what do you do now when you're struggling? What's different for you?
So the major, the probably the biggest thing is that I put my needs first. Usually it's all like, Amber needs this doing, I need to be there for this, I need to do this at work, I need to help this person, and that wears you down if you're not making any time for yourself at all. I still do all those things, I still help all those people, and I still look after my daughter, but I make sure that I'm well first. So I am more conscious of my my triggers. I'm more conscious of, like, as soon as I start to see myself getting worked up or see myself struggling, then I'll do things to look after me. One of the biggest things that I do as well is just get out of the house. Whenever I'm feeling really bad, it's so easy for me, and I really want to just curl up on the sofa and hide from the world and pretend that the rest of the world doesn't exist, and then I like go into my little safe zone, but it ends up making me feel worse. So my boyfriend started to recognize this now, so if ever I'm having a bad day, he kind of says, should we go for a walk? And actually within 5 minutes of being outside, like we only go for a walk around the sports field that's near our house, but within 5 minutes of being outside and getting some fresh air, I feel so much better. Like, it's ridiculous how much better just that simple simple movement is.
And it shows it doesn't have to be big, massive, life-changing stuff for it to be big, massive, life-changing stuff. Just taking 5 minutes to step out of your door and move your body, be out in the air and the nature and the sun, or rain probably in England, but being out, it shifts that energy, doesn't it? And it helps happy hormones and just kind of moves your mindset from one place to another.
And I just like, I've got a few different things that like I know will make me feel better, so I just make sure to actually kind of schedule them in. Like it's quite easy to just suddenly like shove all of your things to the side if things get busy, but actually no, I make space for those now. So every Tuesday morning usually I'm at Tai Chi class, because it's nice to see other people. It's a very relaxing session. It gets my body moving, and also they do like a bit of a meditation at the end. At home I use finger labyrinths as meditation because I'm a massive fidget, and I like having my hands busy. So it's all those things, and I always have like I always have like a notebook in my bag and a pencil, not to do any journaling or anything because I've not mastered that yet, but I doodle, and doodling and being creative, that really, really helps me. It just like gets me into a zone. It's like one of my favorite mindful activities because you just end up sinking into what you're doing and the picture that you're creating, and then it gives you a sense of fulfillment at the end when you come up with something that's actually like, oh, that's quite pretty. It's so nice. So it's all just little things. I don't think I've made any major life I've cut down my hours at work now to 2 days a week. One, to focus on my business, but two, because I can't handle 5 days a week where I work. It's lovely, I absolutely adore my job, but it's too much for my mental health. But other than that, I've not made any big life changes. They're all little things, and it's all those little things that add up to actually meaning that I can go on with my day-to-day life. It's meaning I can like play with my daughter and like be present with my boyfriend and just live. Actually live and not struggle.
And it sounds like you've got it. I mean, you're an embodiment of everything that I talk about in my spaces and with my clients. You know, this is it. It is that building a life of joy, putting yourself at the core of it, understanding that your needs are priority. Because from that space, I believe you are able to nurture and those around you and come from a space of love and wanting to give, because you've got that energy to give rather than kind of the resentment and the obligation and the, oh, I have to, not that you don't love the people around you, but if you're exhausted, depleted, on edge, in your space of kind of, I don't know how I'm going to deal with everything, I know for me personally, I don't want to give to other people. I don't feel able to give to other people. So putting your needs first, I think it's so important. And have you found that your relationships are different because you've mastered that kind of concept of I am important and looking after me is important?
I think that, well, I wouldn't say that I've mastered it quite yet. I'm still working on it.
I knew as soon as I said that you were going to be like, no, I haven't mastered it. But
it's a big
it's
change.
A work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah, but I definitely feel that I am more I'm more there. Like, I don't just do the things because I need to do the things now. I actually enjoy doing the things. I enjoy that time, and I enjoy helping people, and I enjoy getting, like, I do it like you said, like, again, this is something that I hate to say, but you do start to resent, like, I resented my daughter at times, which is horrible. It's a really, really horrible thing to say.
But I think if we're honest, many of us experience that because we're so depleted from not putting ourselves first.
But now, like, I don't, like, I absolutely love the time that I spent with her. I don't feel guilty when I say that, no, I can't play right now. I need to actually do it for me. I need the time for me. But I feel like I'm a better mum, like, because I am more engaged, and I have the energy now. I have the energy to do all the things that I wanted to do beforehand. And so I'm not getting as run down, and I'm not starting to get that resented feeling of, like, I do not want to do this right now. I cannot cope with this right now, but I have to, because otherwise I'll be terrible. I don't have that now, because I think the more that you do for yourself, actually, the more energy that you have, the more energy that then you can go into the world with. And yeah, it's just made a massive difference. Like, it feels like a life that I can actually sustain, because when you're not putting yourself first and you're just getting run down and run down and run down, it's not sustainable. And at some point it gets to the point where actually you can't cope with it anymore. And that can lead to arguments, it can lead to fallouts, and it can lead to so many more problems, and it can lead to mental health issues, which is what it did for me. Like, one of my favorite quotes is, like, if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And it's completely true. And I've been there, and it's horrible, and I don't ever want to be there again. If ever I start to feel guilty now, I just think, well, actually, if I carry on doing what I'm doing, I know exactly where that leads. And I'm not going there again. I'm not being in that space where I can't look after myself, let alone anyone else, because that's not going to do anyone any good. So, like, I think having that ability to just say, like, I don't have to feel guilty. It is completely okay for me to focus on me. Actually, it makes me a better person. It makes me much better at being a good wife, a good girlfriend, a good mum, a good daughter, a good sister, a good friend. Because I'm me. I'm more me now. Like, for years and years and years, bits of me were getting taken away and just, like, trodden down into non-existence. And now it's been a long journey, but I've got that back. And I can just be myself. And hopefully that means that I'm also being a good role model for my daughter when she struggles with life. So I've gone on a ramble.
No, I love it. I mean, no, absolutely. I'm sitting here nodding if people that are listening won't be able to see that, but I agree with everything you're saying. And it's the things that I go into spaces and talk about. So it's so wonderful that it's, you know, you've recognized this for yourself, and you're here sharing this message to people that, like, it's so important to put yourself first. I think as women especially, we have this idea that we have to put everybody else first. We have to make sure everyone's looked after, and then if there's any energy or time left at the end of the day, we'll look after ourselves. And it really is time that we shift that and recognize that self-care is that foundation, that self-care enables us to look after other people, that self-care is that core of mental health, filling up ourselves, filling up our emotional battery, our physical wellness, our like spaces that we want to be in, our creative space. None of it is being selfish, and it does lead to us being able to have stronger connections. It does lead to us being able to be the parents that we want to be, because as you said, like, you have joyful interactions now more than the moments of, because being a parent's hard, and if we're all honest, there's moments that we think, oh, please just leave me be, but if you're full of like joy from doing the things that you need to do, and they only need to be 5-minute increments throughout the day of things that make you happy, you are much more able to be like, hey, yes, let's do this thing. And that becomes part of your self-care as well, connecting in with your kids, connecting in with your spouse, doing things that you enjoy. It all builds up. So we can go in upward spirals, or we can go in downward spirals, and for a lot of the time it is the choices that we make. I know there comes a point where it like, as we talked about at the beginning, we're not making choices anymore because it just is, and you're stuck in it, and making the choices is extremely difficult then. And that is when you need to connect in with people for support and to help you come out of that hole that you're in, because it can feel impossible. But you've come on today and you've shared that whilst yes, it absolutely is difficult, it doesn't have to be impossible, and you deserve to reach out and ask people for support and connect in with that support and be able to find your way, find the way that is for you through into that space of light and loving yourself and looking after yourself. No, it's like, that's, you said everything that I like to say to people, so it's great to hear it from somebody else. I think we are probably at time, so if this feels like an okay place to kind of bring it to an end, is there anything else, is there anything you want to kind of leave people that are listening with?
I'd just say be kind, like, to others, because you never know what they're actually going through. You don't know what's going through their head, and they could be really, really struggling. But mostly to yourself. Like, we are always our hardest critics, and give yourself a break. Life is hard, but you can do it, and you are amazing.
I completely agree. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and sharing with me today, for being so kind of open and vulnerable about your journey. I really appreciate that you've made the time and you've been prepared to come and speak with me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you to those that have listened. If you feel that you've been experiencing the kind of things that we've talked about today, and you would like to reach out for support, you can reach out to me at srtt.co.uk. If you just want to find out more about me or my guests, again, give feedbacks and suggestions, you can visit srtt.co.uk. I'll be back next Wednesday with a new guest. And until then, as always, stay curious and be kind to yourself.